little sheet on your desk in front of you. We would really appreciate if you could fill in the evaluation sheet. It helps us to improve the conferences that we hold in the future. And in response to that, once you fill that in, at the end of the conference, you can hand this in to Jen and to Rahana on the way out. And there will be outside a certificate if you wish to pick one up, and a CD or a DVD with all the presentations plus all the photos that have been taken that you've been seeing on the display outside. So those are available outside. They'll be outside on the tables. And if you could hand in the evaluation sheet to us as you go out of the door later on when we finish. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I just have a few little announcements. What am I going to say? So for the people who have paid us the deposit and are staying here on campus on Acresat, you've only paid for one night, and that is for the deposit. And so when you leave, when you check out, please go to reception and pay the rest of the amount to the reception, not to me or any of our staff, but to Acresat reception at the guest house. For tomorrow, for those who are going on the tour with us, we will be leaving in front of the guest house at 8:30 sharp. So please be there at 8:30 sharp. I think that's it for now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Then I'd like to open the discussion, the general discussion. And as I said, I'd like to take up the course of the conference and the sessions I had. If you remember, we started with my presentation in some regard to look at this nutrition-sensitive agriculture issue, which is in all minds. And when I worked a little bit on it and tried to address our issues, then in the first session regarding the scientific topics, we heard about the germplasm research. Then in a second session we heard about the farming research. In the second or in another session or contribution we heard about the post-harvest research, and then about consumers and preferences have been checked out in India and in Tanzania, and this has been reported in Taiwan. And finally we had this nutrition and health research, which was presented yesterday afternoon and today. And if I summarize this sum, I made already the point that I would say we are speaking about health-sensitive horticulture. So I just qualified this networking or networking presentation in this way. Maybe we could start now by going back to the germplasm research. I don't know who of the people involved in this part of the research and in the presentations would like to give us a take-home message in this area.
There was a question by one person. Do you mind getting a question? Because I would like to make sure that the younger generation in this audience should also raise questions and be part of the discussion. Because if only the adults, when I say adults, so if the younger generation doesn't involve in the discussion, we want to really have the younger generation to take the ownership of this conference for the future goal to be with regard consumption. If the younger generation is not involved in this conference gets just within 5 years to be waste. So I would like to encourage the students or just younger generation to raise questions. And I had during the coffee break, I had an interesting question by one of the students from Tamil Nadu, but he's in Indian Agriculture Research Institute in Delhi. So it's an interesting question. It was mind-boggling. So I would like him to raise it. He said I should discuss it, but I really want the younger generation to really raise the question. I can't use my program.
So thanks for giving this opportunity. And this problem, I'm Amarnath Ravindran from Tamil Nadu. Currently I'm working as JRF in Semi-Arid Division of Vegetable Science. Though I'm an agriculturist, but I have very much interest on nutrition area. So from his presentation, I thought to ask one question because of time I didn't ask, but now I'm raising this question. He said because of westernization and food habits, so it leads to obesity. So we are all keenly observing only obesity. But before that, particularly in girls, they are facing that problem of underage maturity. So it leads to obesity, and obesity leads to problem of pregnancy, and from pregnancy to delivery. So only we are concentrating obesity. So the very big problem is in underage maturity. So I kindly ask some doctors, can you elaborate how we eradicate this thing? And because nowadays, I heard in Tamil Nadu, so nutritionists from Tamil Nadu, so you are also aware of it. So underage maturity means standard students or standard students. Then you see their psychological problem issue, not a health issue, psychological problem, from that health issue. So I open this. I don't have answer because I request doctors elaborate and you give better answer. So because in India also we came from different parts of India, so everybody will take it as a home country, a home state and global level. So thanks for again once again. Thanks for giving opportunity.
Anybody has an answer for that? In fact, and they asked me, I don't have an answer, so we don't. Yeah.
Some news because nowadays the myths which are available in the civilized places, all the cows fed by unlimited chemicals, veterinary doctors. Those milk for the civilized society, they think it is passing through the human generation. That's why children get early maturity. That may be the one cause which we have already for newspapers. The other studies we as you said, like economics,
As you said, milk may be one of the causes, but more than milk, but nowadays people such as they are taking junk foods like you said, some don't want to mention any brand names, but especially McDonald's. I used to go to McDonald's simply watching, but I saw out of 10 girls and almost 8 girls are obese and too much obese. And don't think in different way. I used to observe girls. So maybe because of fast food, so it's going. So I'm a very big supporter of sex education. After attending this conference, now I'm going to suggest, because I have so many friends in Tamil Nadu related to education field and politics, and I'm going to suggest to add nutrition with sex education from school standard only. So from that they will continue, like vegetables also having some medical value, and they will continue. So one of doctor said from genes they are taking diabetes, and from genes also they are taking better products and medicine food. So better from school education, I have very big of education. So I think so if we include a subject in school standards, so we can eradicate this type of problems. Thank you.
I don't have any answer, at least on the maturity part. Go ahead.
So I can give you a suggestion. So it is not at all with the fast food, and it is maybe with the fast food. And also nowadays we are having more fried food, not at fast food. And even when I was younger, we usually cook all the sweets, some fried items during Diwali or some functions. But nowadays, every evening we are eating the fried foods. That is the main cause for the all the obesity and other reasons, and not only the fast food. What are the fried food we are eating, and the consumption is increased nowadays. So that is the main reason for this epidemic is increasing.
I definitely agree with you. And to answer his question, the maturity part, I don't have an answer. But in terms of the kids' education, it's very critical. fact, I had some slides because at the time I didn't show. We train about 4,800 kids in our center. We basically bring in from first grade to 12th grade. We call it grade there, or here we call it standard. So we found that the 4th grade kids, once they're learning about the benefits of fruits and vegetables, 4th grade kids adopted that already. They went to the parents and they are even asking the teachers to buy carrot and other vegetables. So that's clearly shown in our center. Because if we make the kids to addict to some of these, even the laddus and the fried food at home, they get addicted to that. But they're now in the US, they're addicted to the McDonald's food right now. So to change that, now the school in the United States, they're changing the whole cafeteria food habit itself. But I agree with your question on in terms of the fried food eating in India. I can give you a quick example. This is not a really popular discussion on those issues. I don't want to divert the purpose of this panel discussion. But I would like to just state that we had some scientists from here come to the US. Their food habit never changes because they want the fried bhaji or whatever, and also the laddus every day. That does not change even in the education population. So in India, that's one of the reasons the diabetes is definitely not the fast food situation here. It's part of all the cultural things what we have been doing, and educated people are not even teaching the kids, okay, you should not be eating this fried food. So coming back to the topic, we don't want to deviate from what the goal is.
Well, I think it's an important discussion. Maybe we can take it up when we look at the consumer choices and the consumer preferences. I think also it's a global problem how nutrition issues are communicated and how young people learn to feed themselves. But may I come back to this point, session 1 or session 2, what was reported about the research on the different varieties and the germplasm in India. It has at least 5 or 3 presentations regarding the variety.
I think what I try to highlight and what really struck me when I prepared this presentation for this conference was that somehow I think here in Asia we are a bit blind. If I look at our collection, I see only entries from within Asia. But we should be aware that the origin of this genus is in Africa. And there we have over 40 different wild species, which sooner or later will become important for our breeders when they have the challenge to come up with new varieties, resist against certain diseases, etc. And to my knowledge, there is not any gene bank in Africa dealing mainly with the conservation and maintenance of this diversity. Not even our own small gene bank in Tanzania. As far as I know, there's hardly any diversity in Momodica from Africa. And we have in our gene bank only 4 wild relatives of Momodica. Here in India you have more, but focusing mainly on the, I think 12 or, you mentioned 12 or something wild relatives of Momodica existing here within Asia, but you don't have any entries from Africa, for example, and even the representation of the diversity of the Asian wild relatives is relatively small. You have maybe 2, 3, 4 exceptions of one species, so very limited capture of this diversity. I think if you think of the future and if you think that Momodica bitter is an important crop and our breeders will need have access to this kind of diversity. So I think it would be useful thinking of trying to capture, to conserve and make available this kind of diversity, which is perhaps well captured here in Asia, but not well captured in Africa, where the crop originated.
I have a question to the breeders, and particularly the geneticist breeders, on that same topic, particularly dealing with bitter gourd. We're talking about improving diabetes problem by certain tasty or bitter gourd. But let us suppose if the diabetes is because of the bitterness, if the compounds related to bitterness, and if the same compounds protect these plants from pest and disease, because these are secondary metabolites. They are there to protect the plant. Of course, what we are doing as selfish human beings, we are trying to exploit for diabetes problem, right? So, as a breeder, what are your thoughts if the similar compounds are helping in preventing diabetes, and if they are also protecting from the plant, but at the same time we are trying to see if we can develop a variety which is tastier, because bitterness is not accepted by the, I'm sorry, I'm teaching you more. But how do we, as a breeders, how do you, and I see a lot of seed companies, it's a really good forum to talk about what the seed companies are interested in. Are they interested in developing a variety to prevent diabetes, or are they interested in certain disease and pest resistance? Or are they at the same time, or both? In fact, we'd like to have both. What are your thoughts? And there are some breeders here in the seed companies. I'd like really seed companies to come forward and kind of give us some thoughts. And Dr. Dillon is another.
Well, as far as bitter gourd breeding or in fact other crops breeding vegetables, breeding for nutrition trade has always taken a backseat. And second, for the bitter gourd to focus for these kind of a things, now definition of breeding has changed. When we were young, we were taught it's a art and science. But now it's a art and science and business. It's all cost benefit analysis. If they think, the breeders think, or no, if the investors or the company owners think that it has been proved behind doubt that the bitter gourd is really the magic wand to control the diabetes, then they will think over it. Otherwise they won't think over it. Then what is the market potential for that? Really they are the consumers going to be benefited. This is proved by the doctor, proved by everything. Then they will try to invest. Then how much is the return from that? How much people will consume? Whether low bitterness associated with high diabetic compound to create the more wider adaptability. So there are so many questions associated with it. But now still we are not clear whether bitterness is associated with high diabetic compounds or not. It's not clear yet. So we are at a very small stage, just started. But first, all these questions, when they are clarified, then the investor will come. Who will invest in the breed?
Let me pose this question, and it is a challenging question for not to Dr. Dillon, for some of the seed companies. 1 minute, Dr. Gandhi, 1 minute. I'm going to pose a question, and I want you to answer also, because you are also representing a seed company here. My question is, if we want to develop what you are saying, and definitely there's no proof of concept yet on bitter gourd, as I kind of indicated, the large study needed. What are the possibilities if 5 or 7 seed companies together come in? You become an investor. Of course, not Dr. Dillon, I'm talking about the guy behind them. How about 5, 7 seed companies together join for this effort to breed a bitter gourd, which is good for diabetes, then that investment will automatically give the return. Unless each seed company wants to develop their own hybrid, this bitter gourd will not take into preventing diabetes, I can guarantee you. That's the concept we're developing in our center in Texas. We have 6 or 7 seed companies partners. And always they ask me the question, how do you manage the 6, 7 seed companies working together? But our goal is if all of them come to the table, they will get something out of that, after that. How in the audience, like there are some companies I saw in the list, what are your thoughts? And before that, I would like to get some feedback from Dr. Rangi.
Yeah, first I would like to supplement what Dr. Dillon said. When you asked if we are breeding bitter gourd for more effective diabetic control, I think that comes as a secondary thing for me. As a company, I want to make and sell hybrids which are useful to the farmer. By that I mean they should have resistance to disease, they should yield very high, and also they should be resistant or tolerant to many of the abiotic stresses, like drought, moisture stress. These are the priorities we keep. And when we talk of a component or quality breeding, you as a breeder know, quality breeding is a tough thing. Yesterday when somebody was presenting, there is, I think he was presenting the germplasm part, there is variation for different membrane content and those things. Okay, they are there. That does not mean I can put them in my hybrid and develop my hybrid in 2 to 3 years' time. Quality breeding, in soybean and few other crops to improve the protein or oil quality took how many generations. So still with that they could hardly improve 0.5%, 1%, those are the things. So as he also rightly said, For me, what matters is ROI, return on investment. If I'm investing in a crop, I must add value. The value addition, I mean the resistance to biotic and abiotic stresses. Those are the things which fetch me value. Okay, we are talking of use of brittle gourd, but if farmer does not get the proper yield, what do we do? And then there is always option here. You can make, as many of our presentations said, you can have a bitterness removed by different means. You can have them in different forms like pills and all that. Like in tomato, we worked on few of the quality aspects like improved antioxidants. But that does not constitute my primary goal. And then, to me as a seed company, who is the major buyer? The consumer. And you as a consumer is still not interested in the quality aspects. It's only a very small percentage. So I look at things which are more tangible and which can easily be given or provided to the consumer. Just give a small example. If I am talking of a seedless watermelon and I want to charge a higher price, consumer doesn't bother. And the farmer, it costs him more to produce just to get a better price. So that's the reason we focus more on the aspects which are beneficial to the end user or the farmer here. Product you get and then what you get out of it, that can again be a different issue. That's the process part. Second part about farming a consortium and then working, there have been instances with AVRDC, I think Jackie is here, she's aware. We worked on some virus resistance project. Many of the seed companies joined hands and they got the results. That's quite possible. But then here, referring to bitter gourd, if I am talking of developing a less bitter type and there a consortium, I'm not sure. That may not really, I think I answered that part in the...
Yeah. No, definitely it's a great answer, and the second part answer I want to take it further a little bit. Definitely each seed company is investing in institutions where they want to research and developing a virus resistance or insect resistance or whatever you do. Yeah. That's the traditional approach in my opinion.
Yeah, we already...
That's what we've been doing it.
Yes.
But what I'm suggesting is, and personally I even deleted my slide, there's a systems-wide approach we call it. Basically it's from consumer to breed a variety for resistant to pest and disease, and if that variety is good for health, and yield, of course, yield should not be forgotten. And whether consumer is accepting that, if we have that systems-wide approach with the consortium of seed companies and the grocery chains, not just only seed companies. When I say grocery chain, in the US we call grocery chain, I don't know what they call it.
Same here.
Yeah, basically they have to put it because they are the one who sells your vegetable. Yeah. So if they put in part of the package, I mean not the whole ownership and investment, part of the money to this research, and then some part can, AVRDC can, I'm just talking as if like money is easier to, if the AVRDC match that money from somewhere, from other countries, like from German commerce in the future, what are your thoughts as a seed companies? Would you be, I know a lot of leadership positions in the seed companies are here, would you be interested in doing that on bitter gourd?
Of course, but then again the priority there will be for disease resistance, like we did in tomato. I think Dr. Arvind can add to that. In tomato we had a program with AVRDC. Through APSA, Asia Pacific Seed Association, we had a project where few of the companies participated. They wanted AVRDC to develop and distribute the lines, semi-finished, finished breeding lines for use in each of the programs. So we thought if we cannot share the benefits.
Thank you. I'm not going to address what you said specifically, but he did raise something to my mind. His interests are in getting the farmer to produce, but we're talking about human beings here who are going to eat.
Yes.
And yes, we tend to buy what is given to us.
Jackie, please use the mic, I can't hear it.
I am. Okay. I would say that we need to remember that we are human beings who are eating the food. And we do tend to eat what we can buy. But we should have a voice in what we would like to buy. And my worry, when you said maybe the grocery chains would like to participate and produce some funding, but their interests are likely to be long shelf life, consistent produce, which is often at the expense of nutrition.
I disagree with that. The reason I say that based on the fact. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
But also, taste is critical, and I'm not seeing a lot, and I'm not talking bitter gourd, so don't get me here, but just in general, taste is so important and is often forgotten in the process of all the pest and disease resistance, the yield, and so on. And I'd just like everyone here to remember that whatever you talk about, whatever take-home messages we
have, we're the ones that are going to have to eat the produce. Yeah, the consumers.
It's a very good point. That's what I kind of highlighted, the consumer to power approach. As I said earlier, an example, the reason I said I'm trying to answer here, of course this discussion is not only for us, but the goal here is, the grocery chain I suggested is, and give a best example where in US, the farmer developed onion, breeders develop onions of course, not of the companies they know, and the grocery chain buys the onion based on the chemical test we do in our center from the farmers. The farmer sends the onions to our labs, and the grocery chain is also a member, they buy the onion. But that's a game based on the consumer, because American consumers want mild onion. It doesn't work in India if you need different type of onion. So the consumer, and also we developed a mild habanero pepper, because the American consumers want mild pepper, so it has high beta carotene. But again, the grocery chain companies come to us, we need to develop a test, and then you provide. So grocery chain like H-E-B, Kroger in the US, those are all members of the center. So they provide an input. What I'm suggesting here is basically, there's nothing selfishness here. I would like to see that kind of a concept here in bitter gourd. Of course, not necessarily bitter gourd has to be bitter. I think as we advance the future, it may be a tasty bitter gourd. We don't know, because nobody, to my knowledge, it was a 2-day conference, I don't think anybody knows that his bitterness is leading to prevention of diabetes. So that's why we need an advance in science to provide the concept, proof of concept, to see whether that bitterness is, or maybe the whole thing is completely different. So that's why we need a system-wide approach, including not just grocery chain. We have seed companies as a member, and we have the processing companies are members also. Like, for example, Camel Soup is our member, as an example. So they all, of course, they get back some money back.
Because one question maybe also leading to my second point is, how far are the farmers also members? To see if you get the companies members, to get the grocery line members. But in India or in developing countries, you have smallholders which want to be integrated into the system. And therefore, the sector-wide approach is good, but it needs, in my perception, it needs to be broken down also to a village level and try to establish functioning systems. Therefore, I found it interesting what Dr. Dillon reported about the multi-locational trials. Do you think this is the direction one can go ahead to take care of the diversity of the bitter gourds better? Maybe there's no global universe bitter gourd fulfilling all expectations, but probably we need a sort of diversity.
Yeah, when we try to spread the bitter gourd or over a wider areas, so on this small study just indicates that in various locations how it can grow very well, and we get a good ray of hope that it can be grown very well in Africa. Then it's a highly segmented crop. We have to see within Africa what are their choices, what kind of fruit, color, shape they like. So then accordingly you have to go into that direction as far as the spread of bitter gourd is concerned.
Yeah, please. You want to say? So let me see that, we are talking two things. One is the genetics, the breeding. We have to see the complexity of breeding for particularly these kind of traits. We know that, there are a lot of examples. You see QPM maize, we know that, most of the people might be knowing that how, what happened to that in QPM. And then we are having harvest plus in wheat. These are very good examples that where we are, we say, we are adding, in the food, the nutrients. Now the issue is that, not only that you breed, but you also produce these. Sometimes these constituents are also production dependent. Where you produce, what kind of conditions are there, their content changes according to the condition which we produce. We have seen in many crops like that. So I think one is that, when you have to see different issues. One is the genetical issues, where you do, and then the production issue, and then the marketing issues. Now, when you say marketing, a farmer produces things for marketing. He's not keeping for his home. And in India, if you see the bitter gourd, see there are, I think, 200 varieties or 100 hybrids are being sold. Can we segregate if somebody is producing with high content, who will be the buyer, who will make the end user, who will pay for the additional content in it, because most of these are negatively correlated to yield. So naturally you have to do something that the something compensation for the yield, so that somebody pay higher price for that. Who will pay? Who will give it to the consumer at a high price, whether consumer is buying, or whether we are going to the processing industry that they can buy at a price so that they can convert it to a value-added product. So you have to create the whole chain behind it. Then these projects are successful. See, in wheat, if the wheat flour, they do the fortification. Now, if you fortification you can do with other things, and in breeding it takes years and lot of money. So what are your choices? Whether say if a vitamin A tablet is available at 10 paisa and I can deliver to, my delivery mechanism is so easy. If I breed for vitamin A in a crop, you know how much time and how much money will go into it in the regulation. And we did it for the golden rice. And golden rice is a project which is hanging in air for 10 years or more than 10 years now. Everybody knows the value. Everybody knows that these contents are needed to the consumer, and we have to do something there. But the issue is that who will complete the chain? The researchers, the producers, the marketeers, the end users, the product formation, and ultimately those products reach to the market in a value addition, and everybody should capture the value in between. Nobody will leave value that do for CSR projects. Yes, there are CSR projects which companies do, but I think we have to see that how we handle these projects, because otherwise these are concepts which are many years hanging on in the crop areas, in the research areas, but ultimately what happened, QPM was launched in fun and fair in India in a huge way, and a lot of production happened, but nobody paid the price, and farmers reverted back to the normal corn, because the yield in QPM was lower than the crosses which we had. So there is a trade-off. So I think we have to talk about the trade-off. But otherwise, the concepts, the moment we go out of these meeting halls, they finish right there.
That's one of the reasons I'm suggesting to form a consortium. And also to answer your question on the buying, there are two economists presented 2 days ago, Victor and I forgot her name, willingness to pay. That's another thing they have to study as economists. So that study will provide you whether this addition of value to the crop will give you return of investment, return on your investment. Willingness to pay is another new theory. Economists can tell more than that definition.
I want to say I just wanted to take up this point, but we still had one hand up to the former discussion. Ryu.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I just like to say something from the, switch topic a little bit. From the phytochemical evaluation, the good thing we found is almost all the germplasm accessions and also the commercial lines that we evaluate, they have the similar pattern, a phytochemical pattern. That means that those phytochemicals that are listed, we can identify exist in all the Chericia species. So at least this is a good thing. So when people take the feeder boards, wherever the varieties, they have some more or less the compounds already. That's the first one. But however, we found that the concentration range, though now I cannot really give the absolute concentration, but according to the group's concentrations that we found that a group of compounds, there are four folds, maybe very narrow, and there are certain groups, there is 50 folds, maybe there is more potential for breeding in terms of the variations. I also like to echo what Andrea said about the genetic diversity. Maybe they bring more opportunities from Africa because this is where they origin, and that can broaden not only the genetic diversity, also the phytochemical diversity of that. And certainly I feel that feeder board need breeding strategies because this is a very challenging crop compared to, especially we're talking about the phytochemicals. And I totally also agree with you that the consumer-oriented program, consumer to farm, is necessary, and this is very important that the public awareness and education, once the consumer has that demand, and then the funds will increase the supplies, and definitely the breeding is needed there. And so phytochemicals breeding, I think it really needs a group effort. It really needs more, it's a laboratory work, a lot of laboratory work. So I think a single companies probably, C companies is difficult, and we need to involve like ABRDC and also the laboratories that you have to form that.
I'd like to just echo just an example of those who are not optimistic in this. I'm optimistic. The reason is there's a lot of dollars already spent on healthcare throughout the world on diabetes. And in my personal opinion, without knowing a lot of details about the bitter gourd, they are the experts on that. This is a crop which has a lot of potential anyway. So they're already spending over $700 billion in the world level to prevent it. If we can convince the consumer, most of the time in the future with the social media there involved, if the consumers start asking, okay, I need this, they are going to demand this, and then the grower and the seed company has to come forward. So we have to be optimistic in future to develop that variety with an investment, of course. When you have a baby, to go to the college, you are going to invest. Whether that baby or the son or daughter will be going to college or doing something is left to the future. So we have to invest in that type of money. So my suggestion is we have to be optimistic in developing the holistic approach to develop a better guide for the human health.
Can I just very short add on that? That's why I think in the study, in this conference, we include the health economics. And this is really the important data to convince, to show to the donors, the people that give money. And then from our data now, using very high cost of the farming debt, already show that it's cost effective. It's cost effective already in one. So even we are waiting for data in Tanzania and also India. I think that this will be very important data to show to them.
And I can just quickly give one.
Just wanted to clarify, or I wanted you to sum up in general. Well, on the willingness to pay, what we normally do is that we try to ask consumers their willingness to pay for their functional properties, and then we do some simulation by, for example, increasing the price, by about 30% or 40%, and ask them how much they were willing to pay. And I think in both India and in Tanzania, on the average, the consumers were willing to pay for an additional 50% of the current price if they are able to get better varieties that have the dosage that is required. Now, from the consumer side again, what I just repeat what I said yesterday. Basically, consumer choices are driven by their perceptions. And then, of course, in the case of bitter gourd, maybe there are also some cultural factors. Because what I understand from basically in India and China is that people are already culturally or more or less accustomed to the consumption of the bitter gourd as part of their diet. And maybe in some other parts of the world, much more promotion will be required to be able to drive that message home, because it is not traditionally part of what body eats. So if you want to tell them that bitter gourd is good and can control their type 2 diabetes, then that evidence that we all are waiting for must be forthcoming and be used as part of the promotion. And then together with what you just talked about, from the policy side, you can now convince the policymakers that it is cost effective. I mean, in terms of health economics, normally you want to talk about cost effectiveness. In the normal ag economics, production side, you want to talk about profitability for the farmer. But from the donor side, you want to talk about how cost effective it is in terms of making investments in healthcare. So I think clearly we all these myths about consumer perceptions will have to be broken in order to make the promotion. Because if people think that bitter gourd treats other disease conditions, then they will buy me, not even buy it for the cost of diabetes. So that information is very, and I'm sure in certain places, and also to bring in phytomedicine, and of course for it to be prescribed in the hospital, then you require that evidence. So I think we still have some time to go to be able to come to that level.
On the same token, the reason I said I'm optimistic is just take an example of the blueberry in the US. It was $1 one time. Now they're selling it $7 or $6. So there's a lot of benefits on aging. Those are all proven now. When I say proven again, you read all those still data. Still there's missing link, of course. But those are the examples. We can take those for future. And better God, I think in my personal opinion, and again, I request Jackie to kind of think about this in the future. If we have a consortium, because I'm really happy that there are 6 or 7 seed companies are here. That's why I'm pushing this. And the breeders will get benefit. So if we have 6 or 7 seed companies and some of the grocery chains and processing companies join hands with the VRDC, if you go as a $10 million proposal, just say whatever you want to Bill Gates Foundation, if we show them that India is having 100 million people with diabetes, if you sell that idea to Bill Gates Foundation, and again, you need the East and West relation at that time. I think he was not happy with the US, but Bill Gates is from US. And he said East-West relationship. So if you can develop that relationship, the money is going to come. We have to be optimistic to build a team. It takes a lot of effort. Then only you can really say, okay, bitter diet is good for prevention of diabetes. But it's a good start what you did with the German company. So if we can use this conference for as a stepping point for the future.
And you, Steve?
I was just wondering if the breeders might find a solution and to increase the anti-diabetic compound in bitter gourd, how will it be possible to really make it visible to the consumer that this is a high quality bitter gourd in comparison to the normal one? And how, I mean, there must be a quality labeling for the improved bitter gourd so that the consumer will really want to spend more money on this particular bitter gourd and there's no misuse of this labeling and everything. So there really needs to be a quality control, which is very difficult. The bitter gourd will be, I think, even more expensive for the farmer because the labeling might also cost money. Then the consumer needs to pay it, and then we are back from our concept that we wanted to have an anti-diabetic solution for the poor. So then it will be a very high, it will be a high value crop or a high value solution for diabetes, which is not available for the poor.
First, I would like to say that given the complexity of increasing problems of diabetes, it requires a concerted effort to manage it. And one of the things that I see that eating a lot of bitter gourds can also help contribute in controlling it. And as a seed company, we are also interested to look at how we can improve our varieties, not only on pest and disease tolerance, because I think right now that's the most important. If you look at the economic value from a seed company point of view, because those are the prominent problems right now. But if you can integrate trait that would have an input of high compounds, antibiotic properties, I think seed companies should work together. We can collaborate, we can cooperate so that we can come up with varieties that really have improved output rates with high glycemic activities, and we should jointly promote these. Once we have those varieties, if all seed companies work together, then we can convince more and more people to eat, and that would create a what you call a critical mass of consumers. So we don't have to, of course we are all seed companies, we all would like to have a share of the business, but ultimately what is important is we are making a difference to help the consumers, to control diabetes. And from my point of view, I think we are ready to collaborate, we are ready to cooperate as long as we can fast track development of varieties that will be beneficial for the consumer. And I would like also to ask the support of not only the public but public sector, because I think this requires the help of everyone for us to really have an impact on why we are doing this right now. So from my point of view, our company is always open to collaborate in whatever projects that we have like to. Thank you.
Actually, I'm agriculture economist, and when I came here,
So I thought BG as a vegetable, but now I'm thinking bitter gourd is much more than a vegetable. But I think that we are expecting and extracting too much out of this poor bitter gourd. Because we say because of the anti-diabetic property of bitter gourd, and we want to prevent, cure everything of diabetic. But there are many other things. For example, turmeric is there that has got a antibiotic properties. But can we think that that can replace the antibiotic medicine? Perhaps not. So when we say that bitter gourd, because of its bitterness, is anti-diabetic, so because based on the balanced food, if you are putting something sweet on your plate, something sour and something bitter should also be there to compensate. So really what I am learning from here is that we just want to change the bitter gourd from the vegetable category to just the medicinal capsule category. So if the willingness to pay, when we asked this survey, when we ask this consumer willingness to pay for the bitter gourd vegetable with some better properties, then their response is different. But really if you are going to make bitter gourd as a medicinal capsule, so that could be a different variety that should not simply replace all the bitter gourd vegetable, and then the willingness to pay that study should be different.
Let me respond quickly to your very good question. When I was telling, maybe I miscommunicated. Definitely, in my personal opinion, I never think any vegetable or fruit, what we eat, should be considered in future as a medicine. We should not make that as a tablet. What we're talking, again, I'm sorry if I miscommunicated earlier, our goal is to enhance this, whatever the compound, to add a value to this crop, to provide, again, by providing proof of concept, so people can increase the consumption. At the same time, we should not be, of course, definitely focusing on only one vegetable. But since this has some potential participants involved in it, we need to encourage that partnership to develop the vegetable. There is a question. Since he was raising a question, go ahead.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about, say I develop a variety with a high constituent of this diabetic control, and I have a label claim on it. Now, do you think that label claim and liabilities which you have, because you don't have the dosage yet, which is on the fresh or the other things, what kind of liability claims I have if somebody is not cured and dying? Because I have given him the choice that if you eat this bitter gourd, you will get cured. But there is a label claim. You know that how much label claim and how much liability you have to pay. I think I don't want to close my company for that, because these things are very important in these businesses.
Please go to answer. Thank you very much for this question. I think it's essential that what you also mentioned, to keep bitter gourd as a vegetable and not only as a health product or health-related product. This is also true for single nutrients. I'm not extremely fond of, or not very fond of these by single nutrient approaches which are followed by us, because we have seen about the beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is a valuable component in our diet, but taking beta-carotene separately, like you showed for this carrot study and ATPC study, can be a dangerous component as well. And therefore the opportunity of the vegetable is to combine various nutrients and phytochemicals in one vegetable, in a structure which, as far as we know up to now, has no adverse effects, but in principle positive in and output traits. And I think this is something we need to develop further, that the properties and the output properties come together and are appropriate for the diversity of people we think can benefit from consuming bitter gourd. Ray, you, and then you please.
Yeah, I want to add something. I think at this conference it should deliver a very clear message that bitter gourd for the health, we are using food-based approach. Okay, so it's the whole conference is not meant for the tablets and the pharmaceutical. Okay, and also I think it's very important to say that the bitter gourd is not a solution to diabetes. This is definitely the message we want to say. But But the whole thing is we're providing an option for all to manage type 2 diabetes, and especially for the populations that have a lower income populations. So especially for, it's options. I think it's very important that we address the healthy diet is in a high priority. However, beta gourd is an option, additional options to the healthy diet, the healthy lifestyle to manage the type 2 diabetes. And then for the people who are not able to access to the medicines or whatever forms of tablets, they still have options to manage type 2 diabetes.
No, but we have to tell them how much bitter gourd per day and how many days a month or a week, and that will help you. So I think that recommendation is more important. That what we are going to recommend, fresh, if they eat as a vegetable, how much they should eat, and they eat every day. I think that recommendation will help them, rather than we say that we should do something else.
I think this request is taken up by the...
We are doing the research, it is not completed. So after completing that, we will be able to tell you for the proper dosages, in what form it is possible, the quantity, whatever. Now the 2.5 gram is equal to 30 grams of the fresh vegetable. So we will decide about the quantity, in what form, the frequency of consumption, everything as, so that we can.
Because that claim has to be 30 grams. That claim has to be 30 grams.
It is definitely possible only in India. In US you cannot claim anything.
You cannot claim, I know that.
You cannot use ABC, you cannot use it.
In our law also you cannot claim so much.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he made the point, and Sandra also made that point. If I am buying bitter gourd, I am buying it for vegetable. Not for preventing diabetes or curing my diabetes. So that is there, I will go for a formulation. Whether it is a pill or powder or something else. And your comment on blueberry, nobody claimed blueberry has this much higher content of this health compound. Just as a fruit it picked up. So similarly, you say bitter gourd is a healthy vegetable, people will buy. Irrespective of the content which can cure. And as he said, I cannot make a claim. If I go and buy bitter gourd as a medicine, and if I am told I have to eat this much quantity, these many times for these many days, probably I won't do it. If I buy carrot or if I buy tomato, I buy because people tell me it has antioxidants and tomato has high lycopene, it helps in health, and I do it. I don't really ask how much is the content, and yes, is somebody certifying. And Sandra made another point that if I make a claim of higher health compound and if I sell at higher price, can I still claim it as a poor man's diabetic cure? So those are the questions. So these things need to be answered. For example, golden rice imported. And till today, there are many questions, is it safe to eat golden rice? So these biofortified food are, whatever we do, I think we should be careful there. And then, because of these uncertainties, we cannot afford to invest in those areas as companies. Because as I said, ultimately, we look at ROI and how much short time and what I can give benefit to my ultimate consumer who is a farmer. As a seed company, for me, farmer is important. Consumer comes next.
We heard from Mr. Rice from the Philippines about post-harvest aspects. If I remember right, this is in my trying to take notes about our conclusion of the whole conference. What do you think with regard to post-harvest management should go into the conclusions of this conference? We did not have much discussion about it, but I think one of the challenges is for sure to have a year-round supply and not only a seasonal supply if we consider it such a valuable vegetable. Is there any...
That comes back to the breeders to develop varieties for different seasons.
Okay, that we do. That we do.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. And post-harvest regarding processing of bitter gourd, can we have bitter gourd paste, or what do you think would make sense?
No, when the people use it bitter gourd, normally when the people use bitter gourd, they remove the top layer because they remove the top and the seed. So, because they fill it with something else. So I think one has to suggest them that what they should do, because if they remove everything, and still they can get that consequence or not.
The education part.
The education part of it, because these are all components of post-harvest, Not only that because we have long shelf life or that we normally breed for, that our bitter gourd after harvest stay on the shelf for a longer time. But when people eat it, they remove the top layer and they remove the seed and they put it with something else. So something else may add more sugar to them, I don't know, because the stuffing is done by meat or by other things, people do many things.
The development of recipes is also an answer following this line which you just mentioned, to develop recipes and maybe by ways of preparing bitter gourd and taking away the bitter taste through the way the meals are prepared. Ryu.
I think it's also this conference gives the message that though post-harvest might cost a bit, or food processing costs some compounds a reduction. However, for the triterpenoids and alkaloids, so far that we evaluate, it's not significant like the other, like the vitamin C or the beta-carotene reduced significantly. So that also from the message of the human study that there is no consumption of daily consumption of the 2.5 grams that's equal to the 30 grams to 50 grams of the fresh vegetables. They do not have the adverse effect. So because also from I think many people want at least a message because they say that research is forever. However, never be ready. You need to have some message now. It cannot be ready anyway, 100%. So. People are asking powder is okay, but so far probably we can say that powder is okay. You still have the most of the phytochemicals there. Probably you lose some protein and lose some fatty acid, but the beauty of the bitter gourd is they have many different kinds of compounds, compound groups, and then they can still keep there in despite of many different kinds of processes.
Now the rate of consumption of powder should be studied because currently we have masked the bitterness and we are giving. If we are promoting the production of powder at a small scale level, we must know how to teach the people how to consume. The new recipes and acceptability trials could be conducted. And also now we are recommending almost 2.5 grams. Whether if we are asking them to consume 2.5 or 3 grams, whether they can add it in 2-3 recipes, morning and evening 2 times or 3 times, they can consume that quantity. Will it be good and will it be as effective as taking that 2.5 grams one time? We must think about
it. The problem we have is that when we are talking of 2.5 grams, we don't even know how much one has to eat to attain the 2.5 grams. How many fruits?
30 grams.
30 grams. But they vary from, remember that we want to recommend this to a farmer, someone is not to academicians like we are. People, when they go and buy their fruit, they are not standardized. They buy what is not on the market. Some are big, some are small. So we must find a solution where we can give appropriate advice to a very simple man to understand how to consume it. Because they vary in size and so forth.
how much that feeds one
I just would like to add on this because like the 2.5 grams that were used in both the studies, I would say it should be equivalent to like 50 grams of chopped bitter gourd added and water added to 150 milliliter in this mix, and then you can drink it as it is. So the 2.5 gram bitter gourd powder and has been used in the studies should be equivalent to that kind of recipe. You can add lemon juice to enhance the taste.
Can I add that? So far we say that it's a 30 to 50 grams. As a range. And also we also like to say that for this study, because we include seeds, immature seeds, because seeds have a lot of also positive effects. So in this study we include seeds. So for example, if breeding difficult to breed for the phytochemical. Sometimes you can breed for at a mature, marketable mature stage if the seed is still soft. That actually you have already increased the phytochemicals can be consumed already. So that's another strategy.
Can you tell us that 2.5 you said it is, if person eats say 10 gram, what will happen? Do you have the study that if I eat 10 gram powder per day?
That's the question I had also. What about the toxicity of any of these?
Yeah.
I had a question on that.
Good morning.
Sir, I am being from that Agriculture University, and we are talking about these seed kind of things, and not by this farmer, but many of the farmers in our areas, they are going for the pesticides and the fungicides enormously. And we don't have any kinds of what is called the toxic level of assessment or kind of things. And what this conference is going to put some kinds of things are kind of the way forward steps which will provide to analyze the toxic level of the harvested materials.
Yes. If I may take up your question about the upper limit for our recommendation. You see, we still speak about vegetables. We would not ask if it's bad if I eat 10 tomatoes, but we can say it's good if you eat 2 or 3 tomatoes a day. I can't tell you if it is of harm if you eat 10 or 20 tomatoes a day. And bitter gourd is a vegetable, and it's not a medicine. If I would have a concentrate with a medicinal extract of bitter gourd, I would tell you an upper limit. But for the vegetable, I would say eat as much as you want, but try to achieve a certain lower limit and get over the lower limit. And otherwise, if you feel fine with it, if it causes diarrhea, if you eat 10, if you eat 10 bananas, you will get constipation. And that's for sure. And therefore, we don't recommend to eat 10 bananas a day. And so there are upper limits in dietary recommendations, but they are common sense more, and I find it difficult to define a scientific background for this.
May I add, in dietary recommendation for vegetable, how many grams is the serving? I remember last time I asked you, you said in Europe it's like 80 grams.
In India it is 100 grams.
100 grams. In Taiwan it's also 100 grams. How about in the US? A serving of vegetable. A serving of vegetable, is it 100 grams?
And then other vegetable 100 grams.
You asked number 9, what is important? What is the serving?
For example, half banana is best.
No, I mean vegetable. In the dietetics, they will recommend by 3 serving of vegetables, 2 serving of. But how many grams is the serving of vegetable?
They are not measuring by grams. They are measuring by the convenience purpose. They are using certain containers for them to carry the small cup of
So it's a cup.
Yeah, cup. Yeah.
1 cup.
Yeah.
1 cup of raw vegetable is about 100 grams.
1 serving, yeah.
It's about 100 grams, all right? So if we treat bitter gourd as a vegetable, a serving will be 80 to 100 grams, right?
So that means they have to add,
Yes, right.
Can I add? Because we say that so far our human study say that there is no really adverse effects with this 2.5 gram of powder. But we don't want to communicate with outside as a powder because what we like to promote is the fresh as a vegetable. So we were saying 30 to 50 grams. That actually is only half a portion a day. So if what I could say that at least half portion a day is that. But of course we won't say that. But use the fresh way is very important.
In that particular variety, that is NS1024, what was the bitterness content or polypeptide B content that will make better? Means for this preparing this powder, they used NS1024. So what was the P insulin content in that?
P insulin?
Yeah, it's polypeptide B.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah, that will make a
There was a mother.
Yeah.
First, I just want to give a clear imagination of how much is 50 grams. Everybody has seen already the varieties in the field, and we can take one variety as a reference of it. And say, for instance, we say pali, half of it without the seeds can be equivalent to 50 grams serving. And then the second point is from the point of view of a breeder. As a breeder, I am really challenged to make an improvement in a variety with higher level of phytochemicals. But then after learning from the many presentations made from the almost 2 days meeting, it seems to me that the trade is a very complex thing, and I also support the message that my colleague has given. East West is willing to make a consortium that can benefit for us all. And our interest really is, there have been many phytochemicals presented, and to me it's still blurred which one to work on. So we would be interested on identifying really major compounds that plays a role in fighting diabetes, something like that. So I think we are willing to share our research on that area.
Thank you very much. I think that was a very nice statement, somehow concluding this discussion as we have to come to an end. If I summarize, I just took one page of notes during our discussion now, and I think we have identified research needs and research demands in terms of germplasm research, of research on varieties, the need of more studies on non-Asian bitter gourd varieties. We have discussed about priorities for breeding, in and output properties, taste, resistance to stress, and others. On the other hand, we have been told that good yields and good returns for the farmers are important and to be kept in mind. Regarding farming, the second point, we have heard about the use of diversity according to the demands and the different locations, and also the adaptation of farming to the different location as a research topic. Regarding post-harvest, there has been a discussion on certification of products and the strong recommendation to have the full fruit and not part of the fruits removed. The importance of recipes has been mentioned, which allow for sensoric modification and optimal activity. Regarding the my fourth point is nutrients and phytochemicals. We have heard about the common occurrence of essential compounds and the variation to be further explored. At the same time, we were reminded to keep bitter gourd as a vegetable and not as a medical product. Regarding dosage and regarding consumption recommendations. Regarding consumers, we learned that the willingness to pay is highly dependent on the expectations and perceptions of the consumers, and that there's, according to the studies, a willingness of even paying higher prices, even up to 50% higher prices, when consumers are convinced that this contributes to their health. And regarding the health aspects, the dietary approach to providing nutrients, vitamins for instance, and to provide bioactive substances has been highlighted over single nutrients or single bioactive substance approaches. And there's still much to do about frequency of consumption and precise dosage. And finally, about health economics, we have been told about the importance of looking at the cost effectiveness of dietary interventions like the bitter gourd consumption for prevention of diabetes mellitus and other diseases. So this would be my summary of our discussion, and with this I thank you all for the contributions to this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, for your final comments and for leading such a very interesting discussion. I think as a communication professional, I like to be able to see that we've got some clear take-home messages. We had the Hindu newspaper here at the start of the conference. I think we've got to try and work out what are we going to say when we go back to our institutions. What do we want to say to the world as a result of being here for the last 2 days and for working on this project for the last 3 years. This project aimed to develop evidence-based agricultural and dietary strategies for the production and use of bitter gourd for anti-glycemic control. Now, to what extent have we achieved that? I think in many ways we've been able to achieve some very good things. There are also some challenges. I think, there's the issue was raised here earlier that we do have to be to a degree cautious in the comments that we make. We've heard about Merck and other entrepreneurs ready to pounce and make a lot of money out of people's misperceptions. So if we're going to promote something, we've got to be very careful about what we promote. There's also a highly emotional issue. Can I ask here personally, how many people here have a friend or relative who has diabetes? All right. A large proportion of us have friends or relatives. It's a personal issue for many of us. So it is an emotional issue. It's something that we have to be aware of. And I think Jackie made a good challenge at the start. We have to come up with a package. It's got to be a package that has to be practical. It's got to be able to work. Have we been able to do that? I think in some ways it's sad and ironic that we are meeting here in Hyderabad, where India is becoming, the biggest country in the world for diabetes. And we've heard that Hyderabad is the worst, if not near the worst, city in India for diabetes. So perhaps we're on the way to becoming the diabetes capital of the world. So appropriate that we're perhaps meeting here. I think there are, I would like to say, 3 successes that we have managed to achieve and 3 challenges just in putting the final thing together. I think, first of all, that one of the successes we've had is, has been mentioned by several people, bringing us all together. This is only the second conference I've ever been to where we've got health professionals, nutrition professionals and agriculture professionals from the public and private sectors working together. So that's great. We've also raised the profile of bitter gourd. I mean, in the local media, amongst each other, we've got a better understanding from it from an agricultural point of view, from a health point of view. That's good. We've also seen some successes in terms of improving the knowledge that we've got about the modes of action of bitter gourd. There's still a lot to be sorted out, but we have a better idea and we've been able to share that. So that's good. We've also had success in identifying some good performing varieties through all the trial work that's been done. And so we've got some good information too from an agricultural point of view as well. But I think there are 3 or 4 challenges too that we need to consider. And one is, it was been mentioned before, we are in some respects riding on a wave of culture and momentum of history here in India. That we don't have to market bitter gourd. People eat it naturally. The rest of the world, with the exception of East Asia and China, is a bit different. I think there's a major problem. I can't think of a crop with a worse name to try and promote. I mean, who's ever heard of Chinese gooseberry? And I mean, we don't hear that anymore. We hear of kiwi fruit. It's part of the issue. If we're going to promote bitter gourd outside of the areas where it's well known, we need to think about the popularization of it. I think we also need to think about people are changing their diets here. One of the speakers showed that it was very clear that it was older people who preferred bitter gourd. Older people who preferred bitter gourd much more than younger people. We've seen rapid changes in diet in many countries over the last couple of years. Are we going to see this as a popular folk diet disappearing because people don't like the bitter taste anymore? They're not prepared to accept the same idea that bitter is better. We also have the whole problem that this is a lifestyle solution. Lifestyle for good health, like exercise. Now, if we're not doing enough exercise, and we saw that many of the people in the trials were not doing enough exercise, are they really going to eat bitter gourd as well, if there's a problem with that? So there's a whole issue of marketing, how we target the market and the lifestyle changes that are required. It's quite a big challenge. I think Andreas raised a very important point about diversity. We've got a small diversity in the existing lines. Certainly there's a lot that can be still done with that, but in the future, looking for disease control, for finding the right chemicals, we do need more material out there. And finally, I think we have a challenge in communication. If we want to change these misperceptions, these myths, we've got to have a clear message. We've got to have some clear messages that come out of this. There are many ifs and buts with communications, with science, but we've got to come up with some clear things. And I think we came up with a few points before. That bitter gourd's a good vegetable. And if that's the simple message that we come up with, fine, but we've got to compete with a lot of other competing vegetables and other messages out there in the marketplace. So if we want to get heard, we've got to have some clear message at the end to communicate, whether it be to donors or to the consumers in the end. So I'd like to thank you very much for your participation over the last couple of days and for all the work that you've put in over the last 3 years of this project. It's been a very interesting project for us to be involved with here, and I hope it's been as positive for you as it has for us. There are a few people that I would like to thank particularly. In addition to all of you, I'd like to thank the seed companies for their support for making the crops available. If we didn't have the crop available, we wouldn't have any research project. And I know we tried their patience quite a bit in terms of getting extra material, so it was very helpful and very important to us. And finally, I want to thank two people who've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes that you may or may not have been aware of, and that's Jen and Rahana, who have been working on this project not just in the last couple of days that you've seen, but for months and months. Again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of everybody here for the great job that you've done. And Rahana, thank you very much for doing this. And before you go this evening, you may also like to take the opportunity to thank the ladies who made your bags. These bags are all handmade by the ladies at the ICRISAT Association for Community Development. This is handmade material that they put on here as well. And they have a small shop, the Mumta shop, which is just near where you had lunch and breakfast and dinner. And Lata, the shop, will stay there. So if you're not going shopping tomorrow, please take the opportunity to continue to support the ladies who supported us. So thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow. I think Jen's got a couple of announcements about the program for tomorrow.
Thank you all for being so patient and really participating in this conference. And I've just made the remark that this conference is very active and lively. I've gone to conferences where the discussion is not interesting or the talks are, not everyone is very into it. So I've seen all of you are so active, and I'm really grateful for all your participation here. So that's why we're prepared for you, all of you, a certificate for attending here, for your participation and your contribution, and that could be found outside after you give Rihanna the evaluation form. So she'll be at the door collecting your evaluation forms. And you can find your name and certificate and also a copy of all of the presentations and the photos that we had in the field today and also yesterday. So those are all ready for you, and you have to go and find yours. So thank you so much. And for those who are going on the tour tomorrow, 8:30 in front of the guest hall, we will be leaving at 8:30. For those who are checking out, anytime you're checking out, please go to the reception of the ICRISAT reception where you are your guest hall, and just make sure you check out and pay for whatever you've been spending so far. And I think that's it. And yes, and so the people who haven't taken their posters down, please don't forget them. They're so important. They're full of your results. So please take them home with you. Thank you very much.